Greetings. Today we continue our study of 1 John chapter 5. Who is he? The overcoming one. We'll examine verses 2 and 3 today. Literally, verse 2 says, by means of this we're knowing that we should be loving the children of the God, when we should be loving the God, and we should be keeping the commandments of him. And the commandment was to love one another. Note the mandate that must be mastered. He says, by means of this, we are knowing that we should be loving the children of God. Now, John is nailing down this point. It is an undisputable fact that we know that we should do this thing. But the possibility is allowed that we will not do that which we know we should do. Love all the other children of God. So John uses the temporal, that is, relating to time particle, that tells us when we will in reality know this fact for sure. When we're actually doing what we should. When we're loving God by continuous and repeated action in present time, then we are by continuous and repeated action in present time keeping his commandments. And one of those commandments tells us plainly to love the brethren. So then verse 3 says, for this it is the love of God, that we should be keeping his commandments. And the commandments of him, they are not grievous, or might say it's not heavy ones. Verse 3 then tells us about the measure that must be monitored. Jesus said in John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commandments. Here he says, for this it is the love of God, that we should be keeping his commandments. John had that statement of Jesus paramount in his life. Jesus asked, as recorded in Luke chapter 6, verse 46, and why call you me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Prove you love God without observing his commandments. The word keep here is the same word observe that Jesus used in Matthew 28:20, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. And John makes an interesting statement. The commandments of him, they're not heavy. It has been written of in the plot of a book and a movie. One has been so thankful to a deliverer that they would do anything for them. Stated another way, the one who had delivered one from death could ask that one could do, and the idea is what would be too heavy a thing for the deliverer to ask of the one who had been delivered. That's what John is saying. There's no commandment which God could require of us that is more reasonable in the light of the new life that he has given to us. Jesus made us a promise in Matthew chapter 11 and verses 28 through 30. He said that the yoke of service is much lighter than the load of sin which I traded in. God's commandments are not grievous. They're not heavy if we love him. When my wife makes a request of me, they're not grievous because I love her. My sons growing up and even today might make requests of their father. And they're not grievous to me. They're not heavy because I love them. When you think God is asking too much, reflect upon what he took from you in exchange for what he asked. In Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, Paul says the entire life as a living sacrifice is the very least that we can do, the reasonable response for what God has done for us in making us overcoming ones.